Hi everyone, welcome back to another old plus new video tutorial. My card features the prompt Floral Fantasy. Use the hashtag old plus new May 2020 in order to find all of the creators participating this month. My friend Biddy Penny, I will have her video linked in the description box below, is hosting a card drive for those that were impacted by the events that occurred in Uvalde. This is not a political event. There is nothing political about this at all. It is simply a way for we as card makers to send cards to those who have been impacted and try to send a little cheer and uplifting. So I would encourage you to click that video, watch it, see if it's something that you are interested in participating in. I want to thank you so much in advance for just taking a few moments to look at the video. We as card makers can do something that is uplifting, and I'm excited to be participating in this. Let's jump into the products that I'm using. This is a new stamp and stencil set from the Greetery. It is called Daisy Days, and that is my new product. I also have the coordinating dies, which are sold separately. All of the products that I've used will be linked in the description box below. So let's take a look at this stencil set. It comes with 7 different stencils. Each of them are numbered in the upper right-hand corner, so you can make sure that you do have the right side up and you are using the correct stencil each time. I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned from Carissa Wiley over at Sprinkled with Glitter. She does a lot of videos for Pink Fresh Studio. I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch paper, and I am going to do my ink blending over stencil number 1 using old paper. As you can see, I have placed my cardstock in the upper right hand corner, and I've placed my first stencil over top. I'm doing my ink blending. This assures that each time you layer a stencil up by butting it up in that corner, that you are going to get a perfect impression and alignment every time. So stencil number 2, I'm adding, and now I'm adding Shabby Shutters as the second color for my leaves. So this is going to give my leaves 2 different colors, which is going to add a lot of dimension and interest to the card panel. Adding stencil number 3 in the same manner. I'm going to make sure everything's butted up tightly. You certainly could add pixie spray to the back to prevent even more shifting. I'm just using my magnets, and it seemed to work just fine. For my daisies, I went with different colors, as you can see, because I did start with that old paper, which does have like a gray-green tone. These are not colors that I typically pull out. This is mustard seed for my daisy, and I'm going to add that over the top of my flowers. And once I get all of this color on, we're going to move to the next layer, which is going to be the berries. Each month we do spotlight one of the designers on the team. This month it is Kim Dixon. I will have Kim's YouTube channel linked in the description box below. I would love for you to head over, take a look at her channel, and if you like what you see, make sure that you subscribe. Here's a look at the berries. I am using Rusty Hinge for my berries. And then my next layer is going to be the center of my daisies, and I'll butt everything up again. And this time I'm going to add a little bit of brown. I'll add a little bit of vintage photo to the center. This is really an easy peasy way to get everything aligned. I really, if you've watched my channel, you know that I really love the Greetery, and I am a super fan of Pink Fresh Studio as well. I love the layering stencils, and so I thought that for those of you that struggle with this and haven't followed Carissa Wiley, that this would be a great way to share this technique. For my next layer, I'm going to add some details to the leaves that were stenciled with the old paper. This time I'm using forest moss, so I'm going for a really high contrast. And then I'll finish with my final stencil, and that will go over my Shabby Shutters, and I'm going to use peeled paint for that. Once I finish with that, there is a stamp, as I mentioned, and that stamp is going to add the details to my flowers. And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of wild honey over the top. So here's a look at that. Super easy, as you can see, to line up. Again, I love using my Misty, but you certainly could line this up if you just have a larger stamp block. As I mentioned, each month we have a different theme. Next month, which is almost here, can you believe it? It's almost June. Next month is Flipping Fantastic or Splashing Technique. You can always head over to Biddy Penny's channel. She always hosts a video at the first of each of the month, so you get an idea of where the themes are going, and she's always super inspirational. I'm going to stamp this a couple of times because there was one spot on the left hand side specifically that I didn't get. I'll stamp it a third time in that one spot to make sure that I have the same depth of color on each of my leaves. I didn't pre-treat my stamp. I certainly could have added some Versamark ink and wiped it off, or I could have primed the stamp by using my Tombow Mono sand eraser, but I didn't, so I had to stamp it just a couple of times because it was brand new. Here's a look at that die. It does line up super easy. I'm going to use a piece of purple tape to hold it in place. When I get it over to my die cutting machine, I end up picking up that piece of tape and just tearing it in half so that I can add it to the bottom as well to make sure that I don't get any shift when I'm doing that die cutting. And once I remove the purple tape, you're going to see just how beautiful this panel is. I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted to add dimension to this, and I chose not to. You could cut this out 2 or 3 more times to get a really nice chipboard feel by gluing all of them together. But I knew I was going to add a little bit of ribbon to my card, and I thought that that would add a little bit of bulk, and I didn't want to do that. So here is a look at the other dies that I'm using. This Hello with Shadow is part of the new release from the Greetery. There's a look at the Elegant Stitched rectangle dies from Penny Black. I cut out one which actually measures about 4 by 5 1/4, and then the second one is probably 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. The white piece of cardstock does have a little bit of embossing on it. It was just a piece of scrap paper that I had in my stash, and I thought, well, it's going to add interest to the background of that die cut, so why not go ahead and use that up. I'm going to glue all of my cardstock to a top folding card base that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches in yellow. And once I do that, then I'm going to start building my card. For the Hello, I did cut it out in the teal cardstock, which matched the cardstock that I used on my card base. And I'm going to use my art glitter glue very strategically because I am placing this onto vellum. I don't want anything to ooze out. And once I get this glue on, I'll bring in a towel and I'm just going to tap it onto the towel to make sure that any of that excess glue, I did a pretty good job of getting fine lines, but just to make sure that none of that excess glue was going to ooze out the sides. And there's how that layers up. I think it's really pretty. I'm going to glue down my floral panel, my Daisy Days panel. And I just think that these colors are so pretty together. As I mentioned before, it's just a different color combination than what I would typically go for. I really love pink. Pink is my favorite color, so it was just kind of stepping away from what I typically do. So I tied my bow using some gingham ribbon from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I trimmed down the tails really short. I used my glue gun because I really think that hot glue holds ribbon if you're not wrapping it all the way around the card. I just think that it holds ribbon much better than any wet glue or adhesive that I would have in my stash. I'm going to strategically add that glue around the back side. You can see I'm being very careful to make sure that I'm not getting any globs on that. And then I'm going to place it underneath my ribbon at an angle, and that will complete my card for today. So I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, make sure that you give this a thumbs up. Please head over to Biddy Penny's channel and watch her video to see how you can help those who have been impacted by Uvalde. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.